the frozen Russian ever needs to warm up, there is always a pub nearby. I'm gonna eat Russian Pelmeni in a British pub. It's Russian beer. Cheers. 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 Будем здоровы. I'm Russian living in the UK, and what if I told you I'm cold, both literally and figuratively? I really wanted to know, why do Brits wear shorts in winter and we freeze even in July? Whose transport actually works? Why Russians seem so rude and gloomy and Brits are so polite? And the most important thing, who drinks more, Russians or Brits? The answers in today's video about the differences I noticed when I came to the UK. I'm Stanislav. This channel is for everyone who wasn't born here but wants to make sense of life in the UK. And while working on this video, I realized how much I miss home. So I went looking for pieces of it, right here in London. Did I find something that gave me peace of mind? Yeah, eventually I did, but it wasn't easy. I had one mission. I wanted pelmeni. It's Russian dumplings. So I grabbed my son and we headed to Notting Hill. There is this Russian restaurant that serves them hot and perfect. I thought maybe this plate of comfort carbs will cure my homesickness. Just hop on the underground. 45 minutes and boom, pelmeni heaven. Except my train never came. Turns out my line wasn't running at all and the alternative route. Well, I could have made the dumplings myself faster. And that's when I noticed the first real difference I want to talk about today: public transport. You don't know what you've got until it's gone. When I came here, I figured out that transport in Russian cities versus the UK is like night and day. In my whole life in Moscow, I saw two major disruptions. Both were terrorist attacks. One at Avtozavodskaya, I was on the train right after it happened. The other one was on Park Kultury. That's what it takes to stop this machine. Moscow Metro is a masterpiece. Trains strictly every 90 seconds, every line. Wi-Fi is in most trains, not that you even need it. Most of the system has full 4G or 5G coverage. Stations are literal art galleries, real marble everywhere, and a ride costs 70 rubles. It's about 60 pence. You can even pay with Face ID, can you imagine this? Moscow sometimes gives me serious cyberpunk vibes. Now let's talk about London. I live in Richmond. I use the District line. In just over 2 years, we've experienced around 50 disruptions, maybe more. Some are strikes, I get that, but others, mystical nonsense, lives on the track. Last year, the line was closed with official announcement about a dead squirrel on track. But what really amazes me is how calmly people take it.
Why are you late? Dead squirrel, sir. Fair enough.
After a few changes, a bit of wandering and some questionable navigation, we finally made it to the restaurant, met up with my wife Ira, and there it was, the big pelmeni moment.
Пельмешек.
Pelmeni, and it's Russian beer. Pelmeni or Russian dumplings came from Siberia. People used to make hundreds by the bucket, then freeze them outside for the whole winter. Actually, I usually have pelmeni in my freezer too, prepared by my mom, but they have been eaten by my son, who loves pelmeni too. We both love it so much, maybe because our roots are Siberian as well. Every summer as a kid, I would take a 3-day train ride across Russia to visit my grandmother in Siberia. 3 days, one way, so many cities along the way. It felt like a whole lifetime packed into the train ride. And like we say, Moscow isn't Russia. People say the same about London and the rest of the UK. What I mean, London is different from Manchester, Birmingham or Newcastle, but not as different as Moscow is from, well, the rest of Russia. But inside Moscow, things feel surprisingly uniform. The city center is insanely clean, beautiful and rich. Wide streets, historic buildings, gorgeous parks and restaurants, beautiful people. But move beyond that to the residential areas and its copy-paste architecture, familiar chain stores and the same faces. You can travel from one end of Moscow to another one and feel like you haven't really moved. Some neighborhoods have their own vibes, but to get it, you need to live in Moscow your whole life. London, completely different story. It's a patchwork. Every neighborhood has its own accent, its own look, even its own walking pace. You are sipping a lavender almond flat white in a Porsche cafe. Then 2 streets down, someone might mug you for your iPhone. London's neighborhoods feel like separate cities. I would say even different countries. And actually, it's absolutely amazing. Sometimes London reminds me of my beloved Moscow. When I see this architecture, this or this one in particular looks exactly like my home. Wait a minute, it's literally my home in Moscow. We lived in this area for years. It's ugly, but I love it. There is something funky about it. It was inspired by brutalism, specifically the Barbican in London. Soviet architects imagined the perfect neighborhood for the perfect communist. It was a lifestyle, like Barbican. Or maybe this is where I'll finally feel at home.
Barbican is not only architecturally linked to Russia, but also culturally. Here inside, the British listen to Tchaikovsky, Rachmaninoff, Shostakovich, you name it. Sometimes even more than British composers. They watch Chekhov's plays on stage. They scream Tarkovsky is one of the greatest Russian film directors, and classical soloists from Russia, superstars here.
Literally, I just went to the Barbican site and saw this. A Russian in exile, an Englishman in despair. Oh, I can relate to that.
I know how British love Russian culture, and I know how Russians adore British culture in many ways. And it's like the most brutalist love letter ever between two countries that can't stop but inspiring each other in many ways.
Severная Chertanovo in Moscow doesn't have theaters or galleries. My neighborhood, well, still a great place to live, but it never got the same status. Still, I believe it will.
Maybe one day in my Russian Barbican they will stage Shakespeare, screen Hitchcock and play Elgar. But today I see something else, a big difference, and it's urban planning. In Richmond, I noticed that I can stay local for months. Back in Moscow, we would hit downtown every weekend. Obviously, we would go to work every day, and then on the weekend, we would also go to the center for restaurants, clubs, meeting friends, etc. Here is different.
In the UK, there is a real focus on self-sufficient neighborhoods. The 15 minutes or 20 minutes city concept. Everything you need within walking or cycling distance. Work, school, healthcare, pubs. And it's not just top-down. Locals actually get to help plan these areas when they don't build conspiracy theories around that. It's kind of cool.
In Russia overall and in the cities, it's opposite. Everything is centralized. You want a good dinner? Center. You want a good job? Center. You want a culture? Also center. Said something critical about the government? Center. And then maybe Siberia. You get the idea.
I love Moscow, but the 15-minute city, honestly, is brilliant. Yes, I can stay in my cozy neighborhood village and still feel the city center vibes. And yet, I'm still homesick. Can this place ever feel like home? Well, the local theater is doing the Nutcracker in winter. The Sainsbury's next door sells Russian stuff. And in Chisik, there is a Russian Orthodox church where Russians gather.
So, the Russian Orthodox church is across the river from me. It's like 10 minutes on a bike, and on holidays, I can hear the traditional bells ringing. It's beautiful, it's surreal, it's very loud, and it feels like home with English accent. And the interesting part here is that all the local Brits that are living here, they politely tolerate those bells, even though they are so loud.
Brits are famously polite, but they can politely call you stupid in 5 different ways. I'll explain. There are low-context and high-context cultures. According to anthropologists like Edward Hall, low-context cultures rely on direct, simple, explicit communication. What you say is exactly what you mean. Countries like the United States, Germany, Switzerland, the Netherlands, Sweden, Denmark fall into this category. In high-context cultures, on the other hand, a large part of communication happens between the lines, through body language, tone of voice, social norms. So if you are not from here, you'll constantly miss half of the message. People in these cultures often don't say things outright, but rely on the listener to just get it. Examples are Japan, China, South Korea, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Iran, Mexico, and India. Then we have hybrid cultures, and here is where the UK and Russia come in. Many researchers describe Britain as a culture with low context appearance, especially in formal settings, but with a high context communication style underneath. Russia, on the other hand, is recognized as a high-context culture, despite often direct, blunt, or even rude delivery. When you arrive from Russia, British politeness stands out right away. In Russia, people aren't exactly warm with strangers.
Please don't get me wrong, Russians are incredibly hospitable, especially to foreigners. But still,
if you smile at a stranger on the streets, they will either think you're an idiot or you're about to scam them. Maybe both. Younger people are getting a bit more smiley, sure, but the older generation, not so much.
And when you deal with public services, a clinic, a train station or a government office, you often meet a classic post-Soviet phenomenon called khamstvo. There's actually no translation of this word. The word describes a mix of rudeness, arrogance, disrespect, and the casual abuse of small power. A way of saying, I don't owe you anything, and I enjoy making your day worse. But wait, that doesn't mean Russians are mean or badly raised. It's a cultural thing. Also left over
from communism. So why does it feel so cold? During Soviet times, being too open could actually be dangerous. People learned to stay quiet, to blend in, to trust no one but close friends. This became a habit, passed down for generations. Many parents in Russia, and my parents as well, told me, be careful with your words, son. They can ruin your life. And unfortunately, our parents were right. Words still can ruin your life in Russia.
Сынок, чем ты занимаешься в этом доме в наше отсутствие?
Мы просто танцуем.
В стране, где даже нельзя громко чихнуть, чтобы не попасть под уголовный кодекс, он просто танцует. В конце концов, статью преклонения перед Западом никто не отменял. Пожалуйста, посмотри на себя в зеркало. Под эту статью попадает даже твоя прическа.
The government didn't actually protect your rights, so people learned to rely only on those they knew well. That's how this close, cautious culture was born. Soviet life also taught you not to take initiative. People followed orders. In conversation, that can sound like a coldness or indifference, and being open could cost you. In Stalin's time, even your neighbor might report you for saying the wrong thing, or as a revenge. Why not? 10 years in Gulag because your neighbor doesn't like you. How's that, huh? Or even for listening to jazz. People were arrested for jazz. There was even a saying, he taps to jazz today, he'll give the motherland away. I've got a fascinating story about this. During World War II, jazz was tolerated in the Soviet Union. They needed music to keep spirits up. Eddie Rosner, one of the greatest trumpeters of his time, even led a state-backed jazz orchestra. But after the war, the mood shifted fast. Jazz became a symbol of dangerous Western decadence. Rosner tried to escape, but he was caught. Stalin gave him 10 years in a gulag, and even in prison he kept playing. He led a jazz band for both prisoners and guards. They call him the White Louis Armstrong. Stories like Rosner's are about fear. In Great Britain, there is a culture of small talk. In Soviet Union, small talk wasn't small, it was potential evidence. Add the horrors of war where over 30 million Russians were killed. Add the trauma of 90s when everything collapsed. Add emotional self-protection. And what looks like rudeness and compliance in reality is just survival, an old instinct that never fully left. It's hard to explain to someone from Britain, a country that despite wars and hardships has lived through centuries of relative political stability, without revolutions, mass repressions or total economic collapses. When I was younger, all this coldness and rudeness really upset me. Now I just feel sorry and proud for my people. They've been through so much, and under all that roughness there is real kindness. Now let's talk about Britain. Yes, here people smile, people are polite, I love it, but behind that politeness, there are often other emotions and hidden messages that I don't fully get.
In England, we like to insult people in a kind, friendly, non-direct way. Anytime an English person says something to you that implies you're missing something, you're basically stupid.
In the end, it feels like the UK and Russia are both cultural paradoxes. One hides emotion behind politeness, the other one hides politeness behind the emotion. Either way, good luck figuring out how they actually feel. Do you know how I feel in England? I feel cold. And I'm from Moscow, where it gets to like -20 in winter. But today is 27th of May and it's 15 degrees. My wife during winter, she's basically Jack from Titanic, except without the ocean and without the door. I got her an electric blanket, heated slippers, fleece everything, still cold, like the heart of my ex. Meanwhile, in January, I see Brits wearing shorts and t-shirts. They look like they are on a Turkish beach. We look like we are on the Russian Arctic expedition. Our kids bundle up like onions, their kids barefoot on playgrounds. My grandma would definitely scream, "Someone dress those poor babies, please." But maybe, just maybe, Russian babushka is the reason we are freezing now, with a little help of Communist Party. In Russia, overheating your flat isn't a bug, it's a feature. We never built cold resistance. Why would we? Heat was everywhere, it was always cheap. Back in Soviet times, they made heating centralized. One boiler, one switch, and the whole block melts. No thermostat, no control, just high heat 24/7. Too hot? Open the window, even if it's blizzarding outside. Russian winters last 5 or 6 months, and the logic was better sweating than freezing. Then comes spring, or rather summer. One day and it's snowing. Next day, +20, but the heating is still blasting. Now you're stuck in a sauna. And that dry heat, perfect for viruses. Low humidity means dry nasal passages, and it means weak defense. With weak immunity, you've got a cold factory. Well, I totally get why they did it. Extreme conditions, millions to hit. It worked, but it wrecked our resilience a bit. In the UK, no unlimited gas, no cheap heat, so people got used to living cooler. Their bodies adapted, their immune systems too. So when you see a British kid in shorts mid-January, don't panic. That's early stage character development. The boy is training to be Sub-Zero, and the girl, clearly Elsa from Frozen. Well, luckily, If the frozen Russian ever needs to warm up, there is always a pub nearby. And when I say nearby, I mean like everywhere. You can walk 10 steps and there is a pub here. Make another 10 steps and there is a pub there. It doesn't make sense to me at all. There are three popular stereotypes about Russians. First one, we have bears walking the streets. The second, every Russian abroad is a spy. And the third one, Russians drink a lot. The first two, totally true. The third, not quite, at least not compared to the UK. According to the World Health Organization, Brits drink more than Russians. On average, it's about 11.4 liters of pure alcohol per adult per year. In Russia, around 10.5, and it's been going down. Surprised? I'm not really. When I was a clueless teenager, the kind who thought that 2 shots of Baileys was a wild night, I came to England to learn English. A little seaside village called Swanage. Sounds peaceful, right? Like a place where everybody knits sweaters and sip tea. Nope. This is where I got my first real taste of British drinking culture. And by taste, I mean a full-speed collision. I met some local lads, absolutely normal guys, until sunset. Then it turned out into National Geographic Booze Edition. They took a shot of vodka and then immediately chased it with an entire pint of beer. I was like, is this a chemical experiment? Because in Russia, we call this cocktail yorsh. We drink it when we have a terminal stage of some disease. And these guys, no snacks, no toast, 3 rounds of that. Then they casually picked up darts and played quite well. Meanwhile, I'm in the corner nibbling on crisps and sipping my pint, thinking what a legends. Yes, the legends were almost dead later, but doesn't matter. And Russians drink at home. We open a bottle, cook dinner, invite friends. It's warm, loud, emotional. 3 toasts in and you discussing the meaning of life in Dostoevsky. In the UK, drinking is more casual. It's okay to have a pint after work, on weekdays or even at lunch. The wild part, there are over 39,000 pubs in the UK. That's 1 pub for every 9,700 people. You can walk down the street and visit 5 different ones in 10 minutes. Trust me, I've tried. Even the word pub comes from public house. A place to meet, talk, drink, argue, flirt and cry. And sometimes watch someone try to punch a fruit machine or someone's face. In Russia, bars exist, sure, but we have around 7,600 pubs and bars in total, in the biggest country in the world. For comparison, London alone has more than 3,500. There is no third place between work and home in Russia. We drink in the kitchen. So yes, the stereotype that Russians drink a lot, half true. But if we do, it's behind closed doors. In the UK, it's usually outside. Sometimes literally on the pavement, in shorts, in January. Say what you want, but there is something amazing about it. Brits don't just survive the cold, they embrace it. In a good company, because English way of drinking is more social. Sure, the cultural differences are huge, they're enormous. But London isn't exactly the kind of place where you can get homesick easily. There are Russian spots almost everywhere. Restaurants, shops, bars, concerts, and a big welcoming community. Sometimes, when I walk into a local store, it honestly feels like I never left Moscow. But have I found a place that truly cures my homesickness? Not exactly, but let me explain with a toast. The Russian way, in a British pub. Yes, we are different. Let's not pretend we are not. We dress for winter differently, we smile differently, we even drink differently, but somehow we still alike in many ways. We both love order and chaos. We both pretend to be tough, but actually inside we are sentimental. A British pub, a Russian kitchen, same goal, human connection and a little of alcohol to survive it. To cold weather and warm hearts and the courage to laugh at both. Cheers. Будем здоровы. After all of my searching, I finally realized that the only cure for homesickness is people, friends, family, the ones who can make any place feel like home. Oh, and now I'm gonna eat Russian pelmeni in a British pub, because if it's not multiculturalism, I don't know what is. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.